Something huge is brewing in New York as recently Mathieu Darche had an interview with Piere Lebrun where he discussed his decision-making process as a general manager and also talked about some of the major decisions he's going to have to make when it comes to the New York Islanders' future. And one of the biggest ones is what to do with Captain Anders Lee, who is currently on the last year of his deal and is also 35 years old, which makes this decision that much more complex for the general manager. We're going to discuss what I think is the right thing for the Islanders to do, and also talk about what it sounds like Darche is leaning towards in terms of his decision-making process for Lee. Really quickly, before we dive into that, our goal is 2,000 subscribers. Appreciate all the support as we continue to grow this channel. If you're an Islander fan and you have not already subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Now let's talk about Anders Lee and really what Darche said about signing his captain to an extension, because nothing has happened yet. And Darche said, I said to him, let's start the year out and see where it goes. There's no urgency on his side, on my side. He's the captain of our team, and I really like the individual, but I'm new to the team, right? There's no one that's on an expiring deal that has 1 year left that I've re-signed. It's not because I don't want to. I've had enough on my plate this summer. I have a great relationship with Anders. And I really like what Darche is saying here, emphasizing that he's not going to rush to make a decision, that he's going to take time to decide what to do with Anders Lee. And the same really goes for Pageau. Now, while the interview didn't really focus as much when it came to whether or not Darche is going to re-sign Pageau, and I think that's a sign that while Darche does not want to give up Pageau right now, he wants to start the season with this player, it does sound more likely that the door is shut on an extension for Pageau just because of the situation the Islanders have with their centers. That is not the case with Anders Lee. Again, he said that he's going to take his time to make the decision, not rush into anything. But it is evident that there is interest with the Islanders in retaining their captain. I do think it's notable that Anders Lee is also not pushing for a deal at this moment. After all, he's a 35-year-old player who has not yet won a Stanley Cup. Obviously, that is going to be something that he is considering when it comes to signing his next deal. Of course, money is also going to be a big consideration, but considering Lee just came off a pretty hefty $7 million per year contract, probably not going to be the forefront of his decision-making process, especially now that he is 35 years old. But this is all very notable when it comes to this situation. I think some Islander fans might be disappointed to hear that there's even a consideration that Lee is going to be re-signed. Obviously, Mathieu Darche is not going to outright say that he's going to trade the captain, but none of this really sounds like Lee is even being considered to be moved at this point in time. And I know some fans do want to see that. They want to see this team get younger right away. Although I've made the argument in previous videos that at this point in time, Lee is one of the Islanders' better goal scorers. And considering this is a team that did not score a lot of goals last season, that makes him a pretty valuable player until he proves he can no longer score goals. And I really don't think that's going to be the case, especially considering last season he kind of took a step back in terms of playing like a younger player, showing some more speed, some better hands. Really exciting in terms of how much longer Lee can play in the NHL. Really showed that father time is not yet a factor in his game. He had a 29-goal season last year after dropping to 37 points and 20 goals the year before. Especially when you consider how bad the Islanders' offense was last season. For Lee to have such a productive season was very impressive. It does also kind of make this situation a bit more difficult in terms of retaining Anders Lee, however. And this is something I did not completely factor in when I made an argument in a previous video this summer talking about how it makes more sense for the Islanders to retain Anders Lee and re-sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal as opposed to trading him at the deadline for what would likely be a second round pick plus. And the big thing that I didn't factor in was what his AFP Analytics projected contract is. AFP did a really good job this free agency predicting what players would get, and they're currently projecting a Lee extension costing around $6.275 million per season on a 2 year deal, and that definitely complicates things because it might price him out of New York. Yes, the Islanders do have a lot of salary cap space next season, $28 million at this point in time, assuming they don't bring back Lee and they don't bring back Pageau. Still, that's a lot of money for a 35-year-old player who's going to be 37 at the end of the deal. While, again, it doesn't look like Lee is slowing down anytime soon. Father Time is undefeated, and the Lee we see this season and the Lee we see in 3 more seasons can look very different. And for that, I say if it's going to cost around that, it probably is best for the Islanders to move on from Anders Lee. That again, that would likely be at the trade deadline. And no, Mathieu Darche has not ruled that out at all. In fact, one thing that encourages me a lot about Mathieu Darche is he has shown that he is not willing to overpay for a player no matter how much he likes them. And this is something we saw from the Tampa Bay Lightning last season when they actually let their captain Steven Stamkos go because they no longer felt that he was worth the $8 million plus he was going to command. They thought they could get a better player for that money, and that's exactly what happened. And Mathieu Darche talked about that, saying, "There's something I learned from Julian. Take the emotion out of the decision." And this was in reference to the Noah Dobson decision, and where Mathieu Darche spoke in the interview. He said that he had a number he felt was fair for Noah Dobson. Noah Dobson had different ideas, and he was not willing to go there. The negotiations, he could not get him down to a number where he thought he could get proper value for the future of the New York Islanders, so he elected to trade him for as much as he could possibly get. And this is just a reminder that Mathieu Darche really has the Islanders in a good place. No matter what happens with the Anders Lee situation, I think there's two good outcomes. Either Mathieu Darche signs him for a number that he feels that Lee will be productive for the next 2 seasons, or 1 season. It doesn't have to be a 2-year deal, just using that AFP example, considering they thought it would be a 2-year deal. Either he signs him for a value that he thinks the Islanders can get good goals from, because again, while the Islanders are in a little bit of no man's land still this season, it sounds like the goal is for that team to be competitive after this year. So you're going to need more goals to be competitive, and Lee is a player who can score a lot of goals. The question is he the best option available, or is there another player out there that you can use your $28 million on who would come to Long Island who would score more goals? That's the first option, re-signing Lee. And the second option is trading him at the deadline. The one thing the Islanders cannot do, and it's clear to me that Mathieu Darche understands this, is he cannot lose the player for nothing. The Islanders are not a team that was the situation that Tampa Bay was when they ended up letting Steven Stamkos walk. They cannot let Anders Lee walk for nothing. And I don't think that's going to be the case, especially based on this quote. It does seem like what Mathieu Darche is really doing is taking time to do two things. One, to see what position the Islanders are in, because that really does make a difference. If the Islanders are a 65-point team next season, which I don't think is the case, but if that is the case, then yes, you trade every single player above a certain age, and you really just try to get new blood into this lineup. Same goes for if Lee is having a disaster of a year. Maybe that makes it so you can't trade him, but it makes it pretty clear that you can't re-sign him long term. Alternate is true. If the Islanders are having a pretty good season, they show they're closer than further away, and Lee is a still productive player, then they can look to sign him on a deal that's fair for both the team and the player. And this is why it makes so much sense to wait. There's no rush. And another thing you got to mention when it comes to the Islanders kind of taking their time with this decision, in addition to the Pajot situation, is most teams at this point have not made decisions on any free agents for next year. It's actually really notable. Typically, we see a lot of contracts this time of year for players in the future. We have not seen this. Connor McDavid has not signed a contract. Artemi Panarin has not signed a contract. Kirill Kaprizov, who I think is a good target for the Islanders, in addition to Alex Tuch, have not signed their contracts. Almost all the top free agents for next season have not signed. And this also has a trickle-down effect for Anders Lee, where one, you have to see what the value of a 35-year-old player is going to be next season. I think that's really hard to tell when none of these guys have signed, and also know who's going to be available. Again, with $28 million, while the Islanders have not always been the favorite team to land free agents, you did just have a first overall pick. You have one of the best prospect systems in the league, while also having a lot of talent in the NHL lineup. You could potentially attract a player other than Anders Lee who could provide those goals, who is younger. But let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Are you open to the Islanders re-signing Anders Lee to stay with the team beyond this season? Or do you think Mathieu Darche should be shopping him right now to get the most value he could possibly get while also making this team younger? I'd love to know your thoughts on this in the comments below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.